All right, we are live. What is going on, everybody?
What's poppin', gamers?
Oh man, I forgot my catchphrase there. I guess it's not really my catchphrase, but yeah. So this is Puggsy for the Sega CD that you're about to see. If you've ever caught a Puggsy run before, this is going to be slightly different. There are a few additional bosses in this, including a boss that is literally an FMV. So should be a lot of fun. Yeah.
We have fun here.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun. Joined by Author Blues here. Everybody knows Author Blues. But I think we're just gonna jump right into it here. So be going. Starting now.
Nice.
So yeah, this is Puggsy. What is he? That's it's up to you to decide what he is. I like to think of him as a Richard Nixon mask filled with tapioca pudding. That's my favorite.
A catcher's mitt filled with off-brand tomato soup.
In this game, you'll see me use a bunch of different objects. In this game, every object interacts with other objects in your environment in a little bit of a different way. Which makes
That's called total object interaction.
Total object interaction, yep. Trademarked by Traveler's Tales, so don't try to steal that.
Yeah, this game is a physics-based puzzle platformer that's heavier on the platforming than it is the puzzle, but every level does have a lot of puzzle elements where you're supposed to figure out where you're supposed to go and what you're supposed to do to complete the objective. If you are familiar with watching the Genesis run, which is obviously the one that has been run the most, you're actually going to see 2 extra bosses that you've never seen before. This is one of them.
Yeah, and this boss, pretty much all you have to do is jump and hit this bubble, and it drops the shell on the crab here. But actually, I won't even do anything, and you can see. Oh wait, it didn't work. Never mind. I tried to. In the past,
everything is terrible.
In the past, that bubble has just exploded for no reason, but I guess it didn't want to do it that time for me. So.
Yeah, unlike every other part of the game where you are a one-hit kill unless you have power-ups that you can lose, which count as also hit points, in the boss fights, none of that is true. You have a health bar and the boss has a health bar, and you just have to deplete theirs before they deplete yours. So usually if you take a hit in the game, it costs you one of your power-ups, and that can be really, really costly because the power-up that we want to keep is a shoe upgrade that makes you run really fast. And that's the one you lose first typically, but the boss fights you're free to take as much damage as you want provided you survive it.
And a lot of these early levels you're just running right for the most part, or sometimes left. Puzzling aspect of the game will come into play a little bit more here soon though. This is one of the first ones if you're doing a blind playthrough. I've seen a lot of people wander around here, and all you have to do is find this beak and put it back on the pirate here. But there's a bunch of extra environment to that level that if you don't know what you're doing, you just kind of wander around.
The game is well known for, or is riddled with red herrings like that. Like every single level has probably way more content to it than is necessary to actually beat it.
And the boss fights, they typically go pretty quick. Usually you're just using one object that the boss provides to you to take the boss out. This is gonna be one of the. You're
skipping all these fantastic FMVs.
I know. I feel kind of bad. This is one of the first big skips here, so we're just gonna hop up here with using that chest and just bypass all the puzzles in this level.
As is true of a lot of physics-based puzzle platformers that are out there, especially 3D ones, but this one's no exception. Most of the levels will just be circumventing the intended solution to do it our own way, and it works pretty well.
And then in this level, you're supposed to basically take 2 objects to one point, and I'm going to cheat a little bit here by tossing this key.
That super high jump he's doing, by the way, is not intended. It's a side effect of the way the game tries to drag you around if you're holding an item that gets caught on a ledge.
Alright, we got the key throw. So I threw the key all the way over here. Usually you'd have to make 2 trips with the axe and the key because you need both over here. We're just gonna do it that way though.
Yeah, there's a setup he did to hit the lock from a distance, which worked out great and meant he only had to make one trip.
This level is where, in my routing, we're going to get our first 2 power-ups, actually. Get the sunglasses, which make you look really cool, and then the sneakers that make you go really fast. Specifically, the sneakers make you run twice as fast and jump twice as high. They give you an extra hit point like Oth said earlier, as do the sunglasses, but for whatever reason, the devs thought it'd be nice to make you lose your sneakers first before the sunglasses. So pretty much after this point in the run, getting hit is no longer an option for a truly optimized run.
Yeah, it's not super costly. There's always safety strats for going back to a previous level to get shoes again. You can do that. But at the highest level of play, losing shoes at any point is just the end of the run.
So we're gonna use this balloon to float up here. This is where we're gonna find the sneakers. For whatever reason, people in this castle, or the raccoons in this castle, I should say, decided to hide sneakers up here.
So now he is very fast, and not every single level is designed with the sneakers in mind. If they are, then they must have been comfortable with you skipping a lot of content. But
yeah, it almost seems like they forgot that the sneakers were a thing in a lot of these levels.
I mean, holding on to them is very challenging, and they don't give you too many refreshers throughout the game. So the anticipation is probably that you wouldn't hold on to sneakers for more than a level at a time.
Alright, so we got the remote on the right side here. As long as it doesn't go too far away from me, that's perfect. So we need 3 objects here on these switches, and then we need to drop this ball pit open here. I'm just going to be safe. Intended method actually requires that you put 4 objects up here on these switches, but I found a way to do it with 3, and that's quicker.
Yeah,
so.
he's adjusting the slopes in this area right here so that the ball bounces correctly to get into a switch.
Or incorrectly.
And it can be done in 3. It's tough, but it can be done in 3.
There you go. Yeah, if you don't have the things on the right switch there, they just kind of, the balls just go in there and go all willy-nilly. This boss, you just drop this ball on his head that rotates every few seconds. By standing on these switches on the ground, they correspond to a different panel up there that opens up.
Yeah, there's a pattern here you can memorize, and if you want to get fancy, you can do all this without taking hits, but he doesn't have high enough damage output fast enough to beat you, even if you just sort of sit around, so it doesn't make sense to really worry all that much of it. The boss fights, at least a few of them, can be good breaks in this game. Of course, some of the boss fights are the hardest part of the game, but...
Also, this boss wasn't what it seems. It was not a giant raccoon. It was 3 small raccoons in a giant raccoon costume.
What is Puggsy? Great question. It's a half-filled water balloon filled with expired Jell-O.
Here we're going to go to one of the 2 water stages we see in the any % route. Water in this game is basically like maple syrup, would be the best way to describe how your character feels moving through it, which can come in handy. Uh-oh. Or it can be bad like that. Okay. Let's see, I should be good here. Uh-oh.
There's a trick you can do because of the way items move in this game, where if you're holding an item, you can actually use it to sort of pull yourself up through the water. It's a little slower sometimes moving with that, but it's, in general, really safe if you get good patterns on the enemies.
And this is going to be another pretty big skip setup here. When I first started running this game, I thought only the TAS was able to do this, but we found out pretty quick that it's possible for a human to do it, but the game wants you to make a bridge out of the objects that you have there and jump all the way across, but you can use the gun to pull yourself up out of the water there onto that duck that you toss.
This is, I think, one of the few levels in the game that has multiple, oh no, it's the next one that I'm thinking of.
Uh-oh.
It has multiple exits.
I set that up wrong, so we gotta kill this real quick. A lot of levels have multiple exits, but there's only one level in the any percent run where we'll actually see both exits. There's a lot of secret stages that... The secret stages in this game are just, whoops, kind of weird because they don't really have much going on. They usually are like a little tech demo, basically, of things that are possible within this engine that they didn't implement elsewhere.
Well, the history of this game was it was originally sort of... the concept was shown off by people who were in the demo scene community for the Amiga, I think it was. And they ended up getting a deal to make the game for real, but you can kind of see some hints to that throughout the game because they have secret levels that are very clearly little tech demos, and especially the credits make it so clear that this comes straight out of the demo scene community.
Alright, so that's another kind of skip there. You have to take this object with you. Usually you have to go all the way over to the edge. There's a raccoon that walks around with an object on top of her head that you can jump off of, but we can just use the chest there and pull ourselves up. And that's both the exits in that level. So that opened up a branching path. We got to go to the right first to take care of a boss, and then we'll go back to the left to finish the game. Uh-oh. Okay. For some reason, Sega CD version of this game, this match doesn't act like it does in the Genesis version of the game. It's kind of weird to get it off the wall there. But we just have to light that match, and then we're going to toss it down here. And I hit it. Basically, there's a rope over there that you have to burn that drops a weight and then throws the key over. If we just toss it down there in the right way, it comes right to us. This level I'm going to attempt a big skip here that rarely ever happens. Normally you need to throw 7 or more coins into this chute to open the gate, but sometimes you can get it with 1 or 2. But it looks like we're going to have to do it the regular way. So
yeah, it was a nice attempt at the setup. I don't think we've definitively figured out exactly how this door chooses to unlock. You are supposed to throw coins in the slot until the stat gets high enough to trigger the door to open. But the task can do it in, what, 1 coin, and you've done it in real time quite a few times.
Yeah.
1 coin.
It just seems to be kind of hit or miss whether or not it works. I think it has something to do with the hit detection on the invisible switch there. You have to hit it multiple times within a certain frame window, is my theory. Now the flower mouse. So we're going to toss this eyeball down here, and this mouse just kind of runs back and forth. We need the eyeball on the left side of the room there to hit that switch, so hopefully he works with us here, and he did. It's pretty quick. Not the quickest, but... Alright, in this level we just have to drop flower bags onto these switches down at the bottom to open the door, so we just got to do it in a certain order. Or, I guess you really don't have to do it in a certain order. You can do it in whatever order you want.
Yeah, you just gotta get 1 down in every one of the holes. This game has a lot of really subtle optimization too that makes it for a fun speedrun. Me and Drex's route don't look exactly the same. I mean, we go through the same levels, but we do the levels differently, which I think is really enjoyable. I like when a game has some options that, as far as we can tell, we have 2 mild differences toward the beginning of our route that we still haven't confirmed for certain whether or not one is better than the other. They seem close enough that it's not an issue.
Yeah, it's impossible to get a super consistent run on this, so it's been really hard for us to tell whether or not one is quicker than the other. So we just say they're the same.
This is casually one of the most frustrating bosses. Figuring out which lever does what in this fight takes a ton of practice, and a lot of that practice is while he's throwing projectiles at you, so that can be really tough. But once you've figured this fight out pretty well, it turns out to actually be quite straightforward to execute, so that's kind of nice.
Yeah, even playing this game as much as I have, I still sometimes will hit the switch 1 too many times or something and have to adjust like I did there, but it's quick enough to fix as long as you don't miss the projectile, you're good. So that's the end of that direction. So now we're going to go up here into the pyramids. This level is kind of weird. So this mummy up here tracks you on your left and right axis, and you've just kind of got to guide him through this maze. He jumps every 4 seconds.
The item Drex is holding allows him to watch the eyeball, and the eyeball is being carried by this enemy, so it allows him to just watch him. But what he's doing right now is he's moving left and right at the bottom to try to guide him. Doing this consistently can be quite hard. You don't get to see where you are, so it's easy to lose track of your movements.
That jump right there is usually the hardest one, but I managed to get it, so the rest is just stay to the right side of the screen and wait for him to get over here. And we're out of there. This stage is a little tricky as well. You have to get these balls that are here in the start down this hopper. And you got to get him to hit the switch in there. And sometimes it can be done really fast, and sometimes, like right now, it can be done not fast. There we go.
Yeah, you're really at the mercy of the interactions between the objects as they go through the teleporters to work out. And nothing's promised.
You throw the ball up there to hit a switch, and then these 2 raccoons drop down. You need a raccoon with a mug to come by and hit this first switch, but only the raccoon with the mug can hit that switch. Otherwise, this guy down below here will get you before this gate opens to let you through. Alright, here we're going to be finding some objects around the level and tossing them onto the corresponding spots on this pole here.
This level's a little bit of a trick though, because if you take every object you find and immediately take it back to the start, you won't be able to get to the last object, which requires you to bounce on another object to get it at least consistently.
Right here. Use that to get up there. And I know I'm probably making this look really easy, but this is actually quite difficult. But I've played this game way too much. Alright, this is going to be our next boss. It's a raccoon-shaped hot air balloon that you shoot plungers at.
What's the name of this boss?
So Pharaoh, So Good.
All of the bosses have really stupid names. When I first started watching Drex play this game, I thought he had made up a whole bunch of goofy names for his splits, and I was teasing him about it, and he said, nope, that's actually the names of every boss.
And I got the really good 2-cycle there, too. So
that was a really, really good fight.
The timing on that is really tight if you want to get it in a perfect 2-cycle like that. You can get it in a bad 2-cycle, too, with the 1 extra hit, or 1 extra shot, but this level usually requires you to do a bunch of puzzling, but we just kind of use the ball to throw us over the wall there.
Also be on the lookout for these gravestones coming out. They say Wiz and Liz on them, so yeah, if you're a fan of Wiz and Liz, sorry, they're dead now.
Yeah, they're dead. Okay, so this level, I'm going to stop here for a second because I have to remind myself every time when I play this on Sega CD, the music doesn't match the stage. So if you're like really into audio cues for what you're going to do next, this level will throw you off. So here, the music just doesn't match the situation. I mean, you'll see that pretty quickly. So we're being chased by the Grim Reaper while listening to the music that was on the beach level, the first level of the game.
If you don't drop enough of these rocks, he'll catch you really easily. He's fast enough to catch you in general, but if you're wearing the shoes, your speed increases by a little bit and his speed increases by a lot, so having shoes in that level is actually way more dangerous.
Yeah, when I first started running the game and routing it and everything, I actually used to lose the sneakers on purpose the level before this one to get through that stage easier, but now that it's been fully optimized, I don't have to do that anymore. And really, the skill and of this game is just something that you have to get to be fast at it. It's not a game that you can pick up and be good at immediately.
Yeah, you've been running this game for an extremely long time, and I had to run it a long time before I even got close to where you were. This game is probably one of the ones I've put the most time into. It's so rewarding to run. If you're looking for a fun speedrun, I promise that this one is super fun. It can be very frustrating and punishing when things don't go well, especially like if you're on a good run and something silly that shouldn't affect you messes your run up, but this is just such a hugely rewarding run. If you're looking for a good Genesis game to change your mind about Genesis games, this is a Genesis game.
Yeah, the Genesis version of this game is also has a much better soundtrack than the CD version as well. This level here, usually you're supposed to take 3 of those dynamites down here and blow up some objects along the way to get the 3rd one down. But I found a way to just kind of use one. Oh, I messed up, but that's okay.
Yeah, the idea is that you can't throw the dynamite yourself in this hole, so you need a minecart to push it. But if you can throw it in just the right way, it'll bounce inside really well. So that's what Drex is trying to do right now. This shot's actually pretty hard to do. It's got to line up in just the right way.
Now this is another level where you're controlling an object while Puggsy is actually off screen using one of these remotes. So here we're putting this cauldron through a little maze here. You have to hit the left and right switches to activate fans. So kind of go back and forth on the switches here. And then we get to ride on this cauldron across fire, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, the whole reason he needed it is because the cauldron would... First, the cauldron is going to hit this switch as the very last thing it does in order to open up the door to exit this level, but also the cauldron will be pretty much the only thing preventing him from taking damage off of this fire.
The path branches here again to left and right, so we're going to go to left here to go to our next boss.
If you have the shoes already, this level is extremely consistent. It's really nice.
And there's some pretty heavy optimization in this level with the way that you kill these raccoons and blow this volcano up.
Yeah, so he just walked across the top of a volcano and he wants to open it up so he can go down inside of it to fight the boss. But every so many seconds, fireballs shoot up from the bottom of the volcano.
Well, that's a shame.
So done optimally, you can actually make it down before the first cycle of the fireballs, but it's very hard to do. It requires some extreme optimization on the enemies.
And actually, I had the enemies right there. I just messed up on throwing the actual dynamite onto the volcano. So we're gonna have to go back and get sneakers, but that's okay. This boss is Halitosis the Dragon, but we've affectionately called it Twinkle Toes for obvious reasons. It prances around while it shoots Dr. Pepper at you.
Yeah, so he opens his mouth for a brief period of time, and that's when you're allowed to hit him. It turns out that his mouth is open just very slightly longer than his iframes, so you can get 2 hits per cycle. It's very tight. You actually have to anticipate his mouth opening in order to hit him early enough to get a second hit in. But Drex has actually made it really consistent to get the second hit, because if you get the first hit at the right time and just hold jump to buffer jumps, the second one will land at the right time. So
yeah, that's
a really nice optimization Drex found.
Not a great go at that though. Without the sneakers, you actually jump a little bit slower as well, so it's a little bit more difficult to get the double hits. Only got 1 double hit there, but not too bad. I'm gonna go here to get sneakers. We'll take the second exit here to get sneakers.
Yeah, he's very close to another set of sneakers, so it won't be an issue for him.
Just have to go out the other exit of the stage. As you can see, after watching the game with sneakers for a while and you go back to no sneakers, you can see how much slower you move. So that's why they're super important. I've actually done a run of this game without sneakers start to end, and it took me a while. Can't remember what the time is, but not fast.
So this level, you're supposed to use a flashlight in order to figure out where some of these letters need to be placed on the wall. But Drex is cheating by having played the game before, and so he knows where all the letters need to go. So he's just going to put them there. And
that's another, the MRC there is actually another nod to the Wiz and Liz developer, M.R. Chudley. Alright, so here I'm going to be doing a big skip. Usually you have to do a bunch of puzzling here, make a potion with a frog leg.
Yeah, you're trying to bring a bunch of items back in order to make a potion that makes you fast enough to be able to jump across that gap. But between the shoes and bouncing off an item that you throw, you can actually make that gap. That was a huge find. It was you that found that, Drex, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a huge find because it cuts down a level that's perhaps close to a minute long to being pretty short, so.
This is going to be our second boss that you don't see in the Genesis version. He just goes back and forth with his sword. You have to hit the sword 7 times. Not too difficult once you get the pattern down. This boss they didn't even bother naming in the instruction manual, as he was a late addition with the Sega CD version of the game, so he doesn't have a name.
Yeah, I guess you could sort of think of this as DLC content. That's nice. Yeah, it's kind of funny. None of the Sega CD bosses are terribly interesting in terms of making the speedrun better, which...
Oh, the next one makes the speedrun way better. Don't you worry.
I disagree, but okay.
If by better you mean worse.
Yes, that is.
All right, we're getting close to the end here. We still got a few more stages to go. So this level, you need to bring this head with you to get through the windstorm that these birds apparently create up here.
Only because the head is heavy enough.
Otherwise, you cannot move here, and we need dynamite to blow up some rocks down below that are blocking us. So take this head with me, and this hummingbird right here can be a little tricky to manipulate, but you want to get him to come down so you can jump on his head there. If he's coming down slowly, jump on his head, but if he comes down fast, when he goes back up, he moves up quick enough to where you can kind of go underneath. And that was something that we couldn't figure out for quite a while. And then one day I just realized
that used to be a huge run ender, and it still is. It's non-trivial to get past him, but that used to be basically if he gave you a good pattern, then you had a good run, and if he gave you a bad pattern, then your run was probably over.
But even to this day, when I play the game, you know, I go back to it every couple months, and I still am finding new little optimizations and stuff. I think that if there were more people playing this game, that a lot of different things could be found.
So this is definitely a puzzle. Definitely a puzzle level, but a stupid one. The puzzle here is that there's a door at the bottom with a question mark and the number 6. So it's telling you that the only way to get past the door is with the number 6.
And as you can see here, we have one object. It's a circle, so it only has one side, right? I guess that's the clue that they're giving us here. And we have these pipes. So we're gonna toss this object into the pipes. We gotta alternate back and forth between the left and the right side. So
yeah,
now
odd numbered items go in the left and come out even, and even numbered items go in the right and come out odd. So
it's a pretty...
The heart has 2 halves to it, so that's the number 2. What do you think's coming out next? A triangle, the number 3. So you can see where this puzzle's going. Incredibly deep and sophisticated puzzling.
If by deep and sophisticated you mean tedious, you're absolutely right.
It is tedious. So the TAS for this game is really interesting because the TAS can manipulate the way that holding items messes with Puggsy and actually can just fly by holding an item. So the TAS puts an item in the pipe, goes down and collects it, and flies back to the top. Doesn't even have to wait for the platform. So this level's really fast and incredibly tedious in real time.
Yep. TAS just dunks it in the pipes back and forth.
And now we have a hex nut, which is 6-sided, and the game approves.
Alright, this is another level where you gotta use 2 different objects for completing the level. And we need a key up at the very top, but there's a switch on our path there. And if we take any object with us through that path right... Oh boy, I hit the wrong button.
I actually think this is probably the most clever puzzle level. Like Drex was saying, there's a switch over to the left when you start. If you try to carry an item that way, it just opens a pit and you can't complete the level anymore. And so you have to figure out a way to get the key item, the item that unlocks the padlock, up to the top without carrying it through that tunnel. And the trick is putting it on top of a balloon and letting the balloon carry it up on a path you can't take and then meeting it when it gets up there.
Alright, should be good here. Alright, here we go. The greatest thing added to this game.
This is the true Sega CD boss.
And until last night, I didn't know whether or not you could die to this boss, because as you can see here, we have no life bar. And quite honestly, you can't really tell, can this thing even hit you, because the flames come up on either side of the platform here. It turns out you can die here. You only get 2 hit points, and if you die here, you have to repeat the previous level, and you lose your sneakers and sunglasses. So,
wow.
Don't get hit by the fire here, is the moral of the story. And we just have to basically dodge his fire until crashes and burns for no apparent reason whatsoever.
Puggsy wins by doing absolutely nothing.
Well, I mean, he obviously is winning because he has a good attitude. Look at that smile.
Puggsy's having a good time.
Well, I guess the boss is just done. He's gonna take a nap in the water there.
It doesn't seem like you being there had any impact on him.
Nope, none whatsoever.
Like, if you hadn't showed up to work today, he would have died all the same.
Alright, we've got 3 levels left.
You're not supposed to be able to make these jumps, but he has shoes, and the devs forgot that shoes existed, so...
Yep, we use that match to get that. And we gotta catch this in midair to get past this fan. Actually pretty tough to catch that cannonball.
I've definitely lost a fair few runs by whiffing the catch. Or catching it and going in the hole with it.
This is the ultimate final boss of this game, honestly, right here. So... Yeah. We see this pedestal here and all these barrels, and I think, you know, when you're first playing, what the heck are these for? And there's this object over here. This object cannot be picked up, so you can only push this object with another object.
Fortunately, they designed a level that made it very conducive to pushing an object around.
It's real fun. So I just gotta get it up here, and then oh boy! All right, so it's not.
So there's a lot of safety in place. This is supposed to be an unwinnable situation, but he can continue using some of the physics to get the item back up. So.
Yep. And then you just yeet it across over there.
That level is extremely hard to do with any consistency at all, and is the ultimate frustration point for a speedrun of this game.
Did I really just do that? I think I did.
Basically, the level that Drex just finished, if you're on good pace, it's guaranteed to not go well.
This is just a maze. You have to remember it to get through it. I obviously have done a terrible job of that. And this is our final boss. As you can see, we're about to get our wooden spaceship back from the raccoons. Oh yeah, that's what we were trying to do this whole time. Puggsy was shot down by a space pirate, landed on this raccoon planet, and they took his ship that's made of wood. And now we're gonna get it back.
At the very end, by the way, at the very end, Puggsy encounters the Statue of Liberty buried on the beach in the sand and realizes that this was Earth all along.
And yeah, so there's a spot you can stand on the floor here that the devs actually point out in the credits of the game, that if you want to beat the final boss easier, just stand to the right of him. So you just stand there and his own eye lasers reflect back up at him and take him out. And that's Puggsy for the Sega CD.
Good run.
Wonderful, wonderful game. If you're interested in running the game, feel free to hit Author Blues or I up, and we can point you in the right direction for everything you need. If you need any help with the game.
Everything that's bad about this version is better in the Genesis version because the soundtrack's improved and none of these FMV sequences are there. So
yeah, these FMVs are actually, I don't know, I think they're kind of cool for the time.
They're neat.
You can see that super high resolution there and those 5 frames per second. But yeah, if you want to speedrun this game, I definitely recommend picking up the Genesis version. Oh, my bird finally decided to make noise. I guess that's cue for us to throw it over to Oglib with whatever the heck that game is called. Grey Witch Pairs or whatever.
That's the one.
That's the one.
All right, take it away, hosts.
Take it easy, everybody.